If you went to a fast food place and you just kept telling them, well, maybe I want this, maybe I want that, you're probably not going to get any food. Hello, lovely. You are listening to the Love Life with Court show. And as always, I'm your host, Courtney. If this is your first time tuning into the pod, well, welcome to the family. And if not, here's a warm welcome back. Without further ado, let's get started on today's episode. Hello, love. I hope you are having an amazing day as always. Today, I am looking forward to our discussion, our topic, because it's building off of a great interview that I had on Monday with Jessica Steffens, who's a social marketer, online entrepreneur, and podcast host who came on the show to talk about living a life of freedom and understanding one's path of alignment. So for our focus, we're going to be building off a concept that she touched on called actively waiting, and what waiting for your manifestations to come into fruition can look like, where you are taking action, you are aligning your belief system and your daily habits with what you are expecting in the end result of what you're manifesting. So during the interview, like I said, Jessica touched on the concept of actively waiting, which stemmed from the idea of when we are waiting for something to happen in your life and it is no longer in your control. So possibly waiting to hear back from a job or waiting for a promotion, waiting for confirmation of a big event you have coming up, whatever it is typically a time where you've done everything you could do and now it's just a waiting game, waiting for something that is completely out of your control to come into fruition. Jessica defines this idea of actively waiting as an opportunity to take actions towards the end goal in the sense of preparing for the things you need to do once it comes into fruition. And she gives this example, and if you haven't checked out the episode, obviously go check it out because she talks about so much more in really living that life of alignment and a life of freedom. But for this episode, we will purely be sticking to the idea of actively waiting. And her example that she gave was when she had gotten married, her husband was not from Canada and they had to go through the immigration process. When she had submitted all the papers and, sent it all to the immigration office for approval for him to come to Canada, she just had to wait. And instead of, practicing just simple patience and waiting, which can be the biggest challenge when it comes to wanting our manifestations to come into fruition. And then we start maybe going into that self-doubt and not knowing if you did things correctly, instead stemming from a lens of action. So I thought this concept was very interesting, and I wanted to take it a step further to relate it to manifestation, as this practice is a direct correlation to the concept of law of attraction, living as though you have already acquired it. And with Jessica, she was doing things to prepare for once her husband came. So having a good plan, so once those papers get approved and he's ready to come, what other steps does she need to do? So really being prepared for when her desired outcomes comes into fruition. So how can we integrate this concept that Jessica introduced, referred to as actively waiting, and integrate it into your manifestation journey? Well, first thing is let's explore what I personally believe actively waiting means when you are manifesting. So building off of the concept that Jessica shared and relating it a lot to our manifestation journey and law of attraction. So number one is it is a choice to believe there's a purpose in the delay. When you are waiting for things, very much myself, I can become easily impatient. Like, oh, maybe it's not meant to happen. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe it's karma. It's easy to fall into that doubt. But when we make the choice to believe there's a purpose in the delay and that everything has its own divine timing, it is so much easier to relinquish control. And that leads to the understanding that good things take time, and now is an opportunity to show you are ready, open, and accepting new opportunities to come your way. So this waiting time is really just a challenge from the universe to show that you are ready for this to come. You have a plan, you're ready to go. And I also believe that when we are in this waiting period, it's time to get clear on what it is exactly that you want. Are you clear on exactly the future you desire, or are you lacking clarity behind that? And if you're not clear on what you want, this is a clear indication. How many times can I say clear? why what you are manifesting is not coming into fruition. And if you're not sure what you want, that is typically an indication why what you are manifesting is not coming into fruition. And it's time to get clear on what you are desiring. So, for example, if you went to a fast food place and you just kept telling them, well, maybe I want this, maybe I want that, you're probably not going to get any food. So just as maybe your standards, your values, your desires are continuously changing and you're not sticking with something, the universe doesn't really know what it's supposed to give you. So you're just stuck in this limbo at the moment. And you may be at the point right now where you're just not sure what to do next to get clear on what you want. And some things that I do personally are like visualization exercises, journaling in the future. So having journaling exercises where you are writing as though whatever you are desiring has already been achieved and what your day-to-day looks like. So for example, if you are manifesting owning a business. What will owning a business look like for you? What will your day-to-day habits be? What will you do when you wake up? What will you do at that business? What will you do at dinner time when you get home? Like really begin this visualization process of embracing every aspect, and that will help you understand what you want. And that goes into also vision boards. I use vision boards all the time because it really taps into that creativity side where we can make anything possible. And these are a great place to start if it is clarity that you are lacking. However, if you're at the point where you're clear on what you want, this is where actively waiting can support your progress. And first thing I want to touch on is no matter if you are in control or not of this stage. So maybe you are at the time where you are staying consistent with things, but you just have to wait until what you want comes to existence or comes into your reality. No matter if you are in control in that moment or not, relinquishing control is the first step. So knowing that you are still devoted, you are putting an effort, and you are staying with consistency, forcing an outcome, or maybe you're at the point where you're just so desperate for that outcome, this is a challenge and opportunity for you to completely relinquish control and just say to the universe, I say this all the time, universe, please send me this or better, because you'd be surprised that sometimes you'll get things that maybe you weren't exactly wanting or desiring or aligned with what you're manifesting. And then maybe a year after, even a few months after, you realize, oh, everything kind of turned out the way it needed to. And if I had gotten exactly what I was manifesting, I wouldn't have what I have now, or it just didn't make sense. And now it makes complete sense why the universe gave me what it gave. So really understanding that the universe has a divine plan for you, and you just have to trust the process. And this goes into our next point, which is aligning your action plan of actively waiting. And we'll get into what that really looks like with your desired outcome, not with plan B, not with plan C. So when you start to do things, and we'll get into what your action plan of actively waiting looks like, but when you start to do things that align with what you're manifesting, keep in mind that this is your only option. Quitting is not an option. Plan B, plan C is not an option, because when we begin to think, oh, if this doesn't work out, I'll do this instead, or, just in case that kind of fizzles out, I have a plan C and a plan B and a plan D. That was a little backwards there. But if you get what I'm saying, that what happens when we have those thoughts and different plans is we're kind of sending mixed messages to the universe. And that's where we need to go back to really getting clear on what you want and following that plan. And following this, let's touch now on what an action plan of actively waiting really looks like. And first, let's go into the best way of manifesting is to live in it. So what are you going to do once it comes into fruition, and do it now? This is what actively waiting is. So if you're waiting for funding to start a business, open a business account, create a finance spreadsheet, take a course that will benefit you once the business is open, doing things now that you would be doing once you've already acquired this. Even the simple task of, if you know once it comes into fruition, you will be busy for a while, focus on your personal development and self-care to ensure you are mentally capable of handling it. Another example is like working towards losing weight. If it's taking longer than expected, well, what would you be doing once the weight is lost? Learning more about how to maintain your weight, or trying a new fitness class, really setting yourself up for success once you have received what you are manifesting. And I'll give you an example. So when I started this podcast, I had big dreams, and I still have big dreams for it. And I thought that these big dreams would honestly happen a lot quicker than they have. And that is just a clear example of how A, relinquishing control, and B, things just have a way of playing itself out. And I didn't realize until I had really analyzed, okay, why is this taking so long? That mentally I was not ready for things to blow up. I wasn't ready to take on the schedule that I have now. I wasn't ready to make financial decisions that I do now. And how I continue to show actively waiting is that I prepare myself and align myself with the person who has a podcast that's completely blown up and is now touring the world. And that includes things like really shifting my financial decisions to benefit me and my business, and creating a financial plan that will support me over the next year. Learning more about brand affiliations was not something that I ever had on mind when I started this. And now I realize that it's taken me a while to get to this point because I wasn't actually prepared. I wasn't consistently creating content. I wasn't networking. I wasn't engaging with my audience. I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do to prepare for this podcast to really grow and flourish. And other examples include like building a community, planning events that will take place in a year from now. And why am I planning events that will take place in a year from now? Well, I am aligning my outcome with my actions. So as long as I continue to stay devoted, I continue to stay consistent, I continue to put in effort, I know that this event that I am planning that will take place in a year from now will flourish because I'm preparing for that desired outcome of my podcast growing and blossoming into a community that thinks this event would be important and something special that they would like to attend. I encourage you to reflect on maybe something that you're manifesting and how you can implement an action plan of actively waiting. And I will close with this. The best way of manifesting is to live in it. So ask yourself, how can I live in what I desire? And that's it. That's it, babe. I felt really inspired. If you haven't checked out the interview with Jessica from Monday, go and check it out. It is so empowering, so uplifting. She offers so much insight on her journey of freedom, which I think is something that we are all working towards to achieve. And that's today's episode. I love you all so much. I hope you have the most amazing day, and a friendly reminder to not only be kind to others, but also to your beautiful, amazing self.